Hi, this is Donald Laird, and I'm here to talk to you about some nifty, cool Photoshop features. Back in October of 2020, Adobe released their latest version of Photoshop, which is known as Photoshop 2021. They added a bunch of cool things, and I thought I'd share some of them with you. Let's start by taking a look at the sky replacement tool. Now, say you have a photo such as this one, which is a decent photo, but it was overcast and a little hazy, not the best of conditions. Maybe you want to jazz up the photo a little bit, make it look a little more interesting. We can do that by replacing the sky. The problem is there are a lot of fine details along the edges between the sky and the ground, such as in the trees and the bridge. And so I really don't want to take the time and effort to make a careful selection of that. Sounds like way too much work. Well, Adobe agrees with me, and they created a command called Sky Replacement. It's up here under the Edit menu, and it's right here. When you choose Sky Replacement, Adobe will analyze your image and try to determine where the sky is in it. Let me click on this, and you'll see it will automatically apply a new sky for you. Now, let me show you a little bit of how this works. In the sky area, we can choose from 3 different categories: blue skies, spectacular skies, or sunsets. Let me just start with a blue sky, just a basic no-frills blue sky. Now, when I do that, you'll notice not only does it change the color of the sky, it also changes a little bit of the color of the image itself to match the reflection of the sky. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to uncheck this preview button and recheck it, and you'll notice not only does the sky change, but the image takes on a little bit more of a blue hue. Maybe we can see that a little better in a stronger image. So let's choose this blue sky. Well, that one's not too bad. Let's go more dramatic even. There we go. That's a nice one. Notice now, if I click preview on and off, you can see a little better the image itself taking on a little bit of a blue hue. What's really nice about this choice of skies you have is that you can pick one of these, and if you don't quite like its placement, just moving the cursor into the sky allows you to move it around and reposition it. So I can pick which clouds I want to go where. Now, within bounds of the image, of course. But if, for example, if I place it right about here, if I zoom in and take a closer look, you'll notice it put the blue automatically behind the trees and behind the bridge. Now, we do lose a little bit of detail on the bridge. If I toggle this on and off, you can see some of the really fine areas do lose a little detail. But when you're looking at it pulled back, it's not that bad. Let me show you a few of the other skies available too. So those are the blue skies. I can choose a sunset, which would be very appropriate given that this photo is facing to the west. What do you think about that one? Now notice with this one, oops, I didn't mean that. Let's try that again. With this one, if I click the preview on and off, again, you can see it's darkening the rest of the image a little bit. Since it's a sunset shot, you would expect that. Now I have a few other options in here I can play with. Shift Edge allows me to control a little bit where the crossover is between the sunset image or the sky image and my source image. So I can have it come down further. In an image like this, that really doesn't help. So I probably don't want to shift the edge much. I may even want to shift it up a little bit, and you'll notice that fades it down from the top down. I can also choose how much it fades. If I really wanted to, I could have a fairly strong edge here. Let me pull that up a little bit further. And you can see it's fading over a much lesser distance here versus a bigger fade. So I have a lot of control over how it combines the two images. I also can make adjustments to the sky itself. I can change its brightness if I want a much brighter sky, or I can go darker. It might start to look a little bit weird. I can also adjust the temperature if I want it to go a little yellower, a little warmer, or a little cooler. I have that level of control. By the way, you can really see the effect on the rest of the image when I change this. if you look at the foreground, the building and the water when I change these colors. I can also scale it up or down a little bit. So if I want to make the clouds a little bit bigger so that I can zoom in and decide where I want them to go. Let's bring that back down now, because I think I like it better about where it was. I can flip it horizontally if I want to. And I can change some other things. I can adjust the lighting. So if I want the clouds, the transition area here to go lighter, that doesn't look good on this image. I can adjust the lighting in the foreground to darken or lighten it. And again, I can adjust the color. How strongly is it going to adjust the color of the image? From just a little tiny bit or none, all the way up to extremely. I have multiple options here on how I can set my sky. Now, is this something that a person really going in and fine-tuning the selection could do better? Yeah, they could. But it's still pretty cool that you can do something quick. Look how it did a pretty decent job with those clouds. It left a little bit of a halo behind, but not too bad. So that is the sky replacement command. Doesn't always work, but when it does work, it works pretty well. And in fact, that's something you'll find with these new tools in Adobe, all Adobe programs, but especially in Photoshop. When they work, they're pretty cool. Sometimes they don't work. And in fact, I'll show you examples of that a little bit later. Now, one of the other things I do want to show you with this tool, or with this command, is there is a tool built in here called the sky brush. That allows you to brush the sky on a little bit stronger if you so desire. So notice that's darkening that fade area. Or if I hold down Alt Option, it'll lighten it and take it away a little bit. So I can control somewhat how that transition again takes place. All right, so that is the sky replacement tool. Oh, I forgot one more thing. You also can add your own skies in. If you've taken photos, say you have a library of photos that you've taken of cool clouds, sunsets or otherwise, you can go into the sky replacement. I can create a folder, call it My Skies, and then hit the plus button, and that will allow me, oops, of course, assuming it works, that should allow me to bring in my own images and build folders full of them. As you can see, it looks like it's not quite working right now, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. Looks like that may be something they're still working on. Yep, does not want to do it. Okay. You may also notice that when you add a sky to an image, it shows up in your layers panel as a bunch of different layers. Layers, layer mask, and adjustment layers. So you can, again, customize this. For example, I can take one piece at a time. This is the layer that just changes the tone of the existing image. This adds the darkening effect. Here's the sky image. And then we have a couple of other adjustments that came in depending on what the settings were I chose. So you can choose to turn on or off any of these individual effects. You can choose to adjust, say, the opacity of a layer. Say this one here. If I want to, I can tone that down a little bit so it's not as strong. I can even be wild and crazy and play with the blend modes to get some really drastic looks. And I'm just moving my mouse over top of these to be able to see what all the options are. So I have a lot of flexibility with the skies that are added. And these are all added non-destructively. I can just hit the eyeball right here, turn it off. There's my original image, so I can see my before and after very quickly and easily. Very cool feature. So let's move on from sky replacement. The next new feature I'd like to share with you is how Adobe has made it incredibly easy to create a tiled background. Say you want an image to repeat, maybe for a background of a web page, or you're doing something like creating your own gift wrap paper, or you want to create stationery that's got a cool pattern in the background. It used to be much more difficult to do this. Now it is a piece of cake. Let me show you. I'm going to go back to my original image and just get rid of that type layer. And we'll start with something very simple. I'll pick a color and I'm just going to paint on this. So let me go ahead and just paint. Now, if I wanted to place something on here, let's just go ahead and I'm just going to do a few squiggles, nothing fancy. And let's say we wanted to see what this looked like if I was to repeat with it. What I would have to do is I would have to previously do a select all and define a pattern. Pattern 2 is a great name. Then I would need to create a document. Let's do that. And then I would edit fill with that pattern. There's my nice new pattern. And you can see it doesn't tile very well. There's this weird break right here where the left edge of one image and the right edge of the other don't meet. If I had made this document larger, let's just do this. Let me undo that. And let's go ahead and make this thing taller. Now, if I fill it with that pattern, you'll see where it doesn't line up vertically either. Makes it hard to do because of the fact that we don't very easily map the left and right edges of an image to each other because they're on opposite sides. We don't put them together on our own very easily. So what I'm going to do is make life a whole lot easier for myself and use the new feature that Adobe gave us, which is called Pattern Preview View. Again, it's under the View menu. And when you choose Pattern Preview, what it will do is it will, I'm going to go ahead and zoom out a little bit, it will show you your document, which is the one in the rectangle here. It will show you that tiled so that you can see where things would and would not line up. What this allows me to do, which is really cool, is I'm going to go ahead and undo myself back a few steps to before I drew my squiggle. Let me go back into Pattern Preview. Now, if I draw, I can see exactly what will and will not line up, so I can match things up. So if I want to draw something like this, I can match it up beautifully. And in fact, if you look, that makes a very cool texture type pattern right off the bat. And that was just with doing a tiny bit of simple painting. If I want to try something a little more complex, let me undo back. And I'm just going to go ahead and use maybe a couple of the custom shapes. Paw prints look good. Let me go ahead and draw a couple of paw prints. I'll draw a little one here, maybe a bigger one. And I'm going to go ahead and put a couple of them that cross the boundaries in my document. And just like that, oops, I have created this really cool tiled background that would be much, much more difficult to do if I didn't have this feature, because it would be a lot of trial and error. This way I have no problems with this, and all I need to do is define that pattern. This one I'll call pause. Now that I have that pattern, I can create a brand new document. Like that, and then just fill it with my new and improved pattern. And there it is. I don't have to worry about the size, what crosses over one side or the other. Makes no difference to me. And because I did these paws using one of these shape tools, I have the advantage of I could take any one of these, and if I want to, I could maybe rotate it a little bit, change its scale, distort it if I wanted to. So I have, again, complete control over these shapes, not having to worry at all about whether they cross any of the borders. My pattern will automatically handle it, and that way I don't need to worry about it. Very, very cool feature. Speaking of shapes, they did add a brand new shape tool, which I don't know if this is very exciting, but it's kind of cool. They have now added a triangle tool. In the past, the only way you could make a nice clean triangle is by using the polygon tool, setting it to 3. Okay, that's reasonable, but what they've added is the ability to do custom triangles now. Let me just show you an example. I'm going to draw out a triangle. I'll just cover that, I don't mind. There's a triangle, but not only can you create a triangle that easily now, you might notice right up here there's a little circle in that corner. That allows me to grab this and instantly change the roundness of the corners very, very simply. So that if I want very, very rounded triangle, I can do that. Or I can have a nearly pointed triangle with just slightly rounded corners. There's that. Or I can make it completely rounded if I want to. So again, I have that capability. That's brand new. That used to take a fair amount of work previously. They've also added those on-screen controls to some of the other tools as well. So for example, if you create a rectangle, you now can round the corners. You can grab one of those to round all 4 corners, or if you hold down Alt or Option, you can round each single corner independently. So if I want to, I can have very large rounding on 2 corners and small rounding on others. Let me change the color of this so you can see it a little better. So just little ways that they've attempted to make some of the features a little easier to use. And again, if I back up now, that shows up on my pattern. And now the best for last. The single biggest set of features that Adobe added to Photoshop 2021 are what they call their neural filters. Now, Adobe has been working for many years on what they call the Adobe Sensei system. It is an artificial intelligence, machine learning capability that allows Photoshop to do cool stuff like finding the edge of the sky in an image or finding where the sky itself is. These neural filters, they all are pretty intense filters that do some cool stuff. Right now, it's still early going. Only a handful of them are available. They will be adding more soon. But I wanted to show you what they look like. So to get to them, you go Filter. Oh, sorry. It would really help if I'm on the correct layer. You go Filter, Neural Filters. And what this does is it puts you in a completely new workspace. You're still in Photoshop, but you don't have access to all your regular Photoshop tools and the like. There are 3 categories of neural filters. There are the complete ones, or what they call featured. Notice it says featured filters. That includes these 2 filters, skin smoothing and style transfer. Now, right off the bat, you notice skin smoothing is grayed out. As part of this, it will look at your image and try to determine whether it can find a face or not. If it can find a face, it will activate the skin-related tools. If it can't, then it will gray them out. So we have 2 featured filters, and then down here we have the beta filters. Now the beta filters are in 2 different categories. The ones here that are available, those are still changing. They're still improving it. The more people use Photoshop and use these filters, the more it learns and improves. I've seen an improvement in these filters already from when they first came out in October till now. So that handles these first 6. And then the ones beneath that are all ones that are coming. They're not here yet. And in fact, they're working on them and they're asking people to help them determine which ones to work on next. You can actually vote on it. So let's say you're really into turning a photograph into a sketch, such as this. You can click on the I'm interested. It'll ask you why you're interested and send that feedback to Adobe. So they're collecting votes essentially of which ones to work on first. But let me just show you what these coming soon ones are, and then we'll get to the ones that actually exist. So we have face to caricature, pencil artwork, This one seems really promising. It will take a pencil sketch and then attempt to turn it into a photorealistic image by analyzing it and then colorizing and texturizing it like it was a real person. That's very cool. We can convert a photo to a sketch. Face cleanup will do things like removing glasses, cleaning up the backgrounds, shadows, etc. Noise reduction, I'm looking forward to this one. Right now, if you use Photoshop to reduce noise, it tends to blur an image considerably. This promises to do a much cleaner job of it. Dust and scratches should help to clean up a lot of light damage on images. And then photo restoration. I'm kind of waiting to see on this one. Most automated photo restoration things I've seen thus far are not great. I'm hoping Adobe's is better. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk through all of these, but I'm going to go ahead and get a picture of a person first. I do want to tell you that most of these neural filters are very processor intensive. They'll use the GPU, the graphics processing unit of your computer, instead of your CPU if one is available. So if you have a machine that's got a decent GPU, you're much more likely to get a good result in a more timely fashion. The other thing to know is that several of these filters use cloud processing. So it's not even your computer that does the processing. The data gets sent up to Adobe's servers where they've got real high horsepower machines that can work on it, and then it returns the results to you. So to use those features, you will need to be online. You don't need to, in general, when you're working in Photoshop, have to be online, but for some of these filters, you do. A couple other really quick points. One is because these are so intensive, even though there are a bunch of the filters available in that menu, Adobe limits you to only applying 6 of them to any one image, which is reasonable as far as I'm concerned. The other thing to note is that for the beta plugins, the beta filters, they are frequently updating it. So you may see a little button next to the name that tells you need to download the latest copy, or the first time you go to use it, you may need to download the code for the beta filter. Just a small issue. So I'm going to go ahead and close this image and start with this image. I just used some stock photo images, some comps for online for our educational purposes only. This is an example of a stock image that shows a person with blemished skin on one side and very smooth skin on the other, artificially so. But I want to show you what Adobe's product can do. So I'm going to go ahead and select just this half of the image. So that's the left half is the only one we'll be working with. And I'm going to go to Neural Filters. You'll notice it took a moment longer because it was detecting the face, and now you can see skin smoothing is not grayed out. It's available. So in order to use it, I turn it on by clicking the little on button, and right away you may notice a difference. Let me toggle this off and back on again. Can you see the smoothing that it's doing? Now I have 2 controls. I can turn up the blur, knowing that if I blur it more, it will remove more of the blemishes, but I'm also going to lose some detail. But one thing to note is that it's being very smart in trying to limit the loss of detail in areas other than skin. So as I toggle that on and off, you can see that, for example, where the watermark is that shows eye stock, it's losing some quality, but it's not completely wiping it out. And other areas like the eyes and the eyelashes, it detects fine detail there and is doing its absolute best to keep that as intact as possible. I'm going to go ahead and go for broke here and turn the smoothness all the way up. This is giving it as much power as it can have. And let's see how that looks. Before, after. Now it's not removing 100% of the discoloration or the blemishes, but it is still keeping some reasonable texture in there. That's probably too much adjusting, but it's pretty cool what it does. And again, it does this and allows us later to go in and adjust things. Notice the request for feedback. Again, this is how they're learning. But let's say I say okay to this. I'm happy with it. What it will do is it'll put this cleaned up version on a new layer. And you can see the areas that it worked on. it left the eyebrows and the eye alone, and it chose carefully what areas it wanted to work on. Again, this is a non-destructive edit, so I can turn that on or off as I see fit. And because it's a non-destructive edit on its own layer, I have the full ability to add a layer mask, and any place I don't like, I can come in here and say, well, I think you smoothed the lip area too much. So I can just paint with black right there, or maybe I don't like what it did with the nose. I can paint right in there and remove the corrections that it did. Before, after. So if I thought it was too strong in a particular area, I can tweak it a little bit. Gives me a lot of power. The next neural filter I want to show you is called Transfer Style. And for this, I chose one of my images. And what we're going to do is take a look at how we can transfer the style of a very stylized photo into this image. So I'm going to go to Neural Filters, choose Style Transfer, and turn it on. Now notice the little circle up here? That shows you that it was working. Depending on the size of the file, the horsepower of your machine, and the speed of your network, it may take longer or shorter periods of time in order to get this to happen. So right off the bat here, it's choosing the first image by default and taking my photo and converting it to that style. Now by style, that means colors, texture, brush strokes. So if I choose a different one, say this one, you'll notice it starts with my same image, but gives me a very different look. I'm going to go back to the first one here. And for any of these, I have the option to preserve my original colors if I want to. So there my original image. So to remind you, original image, but with the strokes and texture of this image, or with the color of that image. I can also focus on the subject, which this image doesn't have a real clear subject, so it's not going to do that. What it's going to do in that case is apply stronger transfer a style to your subject area. And again, I have some additional settings here. I can choose to really tone that down so it's much less strong, or I can crank it all the way up to get a full effect. I can control the size of the brush, so any brush strokes would get smaller or larger, which is going to affect the texture applied to the image. I can choose to blur the background if I want to, and I can adjust the overall brightness. Now, some of these styles, some of these styles can take a long time. Long time on this image being 10 to 20 seconds each. I can apply these styles, but it takes a little while. And by the way, you have many more than just these 4. If I click on Show More, it will show me all of the other styles available, many of which are based off of artwork. And so what I've done, just like in the Good Cooking shows, is I've pre-done a few of these for your viewing pleasure. So let me just show you, starting with this exact same image, some of the styles that I've transferred on. So you can get an idea of just how different I can make this one image with a single step, which is applying the neural filters. This, by the way, in case you don't notice, is Van Gogh's Starry Nights as applied to this image. Some of them have very strong coloring. Some of them have very strong brush strokes. It is a cool, cool feature that you can play with. And this works well with most any photo, which is pretty nifty. So that is it for the featured filters, the skin smoothing and the style transfer. We're now going to tiptoe into beta area. And again, some of these may or may not work great because they're still beta. The first one, Smart Portrait, I'm going to save for last because that's one of the coolest ones. So we're going to jump down to the next one, Makeup Transfer. So in order to do that, and let me just do a little house cleaning here, get rid of a couple of files that I don't need. I'm going to have 2 different images. My cat keeps coming up. I happen to have this image and this one. So what we are going to do, and again, these are just stock photos that I found, these guys. We're going to take her makeup style, the heavy eyeliner, the lipstick, etc. And we are going to place that onto this image. But rather than me sampling colors and painting it on and doing all that stuff, what I do is choose Neural Filters. Again, it's going to detect that there's a face here. I'm going to go to Makeup Transfer, turn that on, and then I need to select my reference image. Once I do that, you can see it applies the makeup from this image to the eyebrows, the eyes, and the lips of that image. And there are no settings. It just is applied or is not applied. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK to this. And you'll see what it did is it put that on a new layer. There are the new eyes and lips. What this allows me to do, of course, is because it's its own layer, I can then tone it down. I can have the opacity set to 0, which means show me the original image, or I can start to dial up the makeup. So if it's a little too strong at full strength, I can tone that down, or I can decide I like it on the eyes but not on the eyebrows. So I'm going to add a layer mask and just paint with black over the eyebrows to put them back to the way they were originally. So again, before, after. And notice I didn't have to tell it where the mouth was, where the eyes, the eyebrows were. It figured that all out on its own, which is pretty nifty. Okay, next will be, after a little cleanup, next will be the depth-aware haze. So I'm going to go to Neural Filters. Let's scoot this image over a little better so you can see our friend there. When I go to Depth-Aware Haze, and if I turn that on, notice the foreground versus background in this image, what it does. It puts a nice little haze in the background of the image. Let me show you the before and after. Before, after. While keeping the subject, the cow in the front, very nice and sharp and clean. And again, I have some settings on this one. I can increase the haze so it becomes a very foggy day, or I can lower it so it's just a light haze. Let's go for lots of fog. I can also control the warmth of the haze. Is it maybe sunset on a foggy day? Or is it a very cool, cold, crisp blue morning? Either one. And I can control the brightness of the haze. Do we want it to be a really bright image overall with bright haze, or is it kind of a dark day? I don't care for this brightness setting too much. I tend to leave that pretty much near 0. But I do like the fact that you can control the haze. Let me back up a little bit so you can see the whole image, or a better part of the image. So again, original image, haze. If I apply this, you'll see what it does is it creates a duplicate layer, so I can turn that on or off. I can adjust its opacity if I want to. I can even be wild and crazy and play with the blend modes. Now, I don't know why I might do this. It's not the most exciting, but it's kind of cool. The next feature is the auto colorize. Now, I will preface this with you can still do a much better job if you learn how to manually colorize an image. By the way, we teach Photoshop in the Computer Studies department if you want to learn how to do this. Shameless plug. Okay, let's look at this image. This is an older black and white image, and let's say we want to colorize it. We want to make it look like it would, not a modern image, but like a tinted image of the day. So I can go to Neural Filters, go to Colorize, and when I turn that on, boom, there we go. It automatically colorized the image. It detected the features and it colored them. Notice it even found the necklace and earrings and colored them correspondingly. I can control a little bit some of the settings if I want to. I can adjust it to make it a little warmer or cooler. These are just color settings. I can't directly change the information about what it colors things, unfortunately. What I can do, though, is I can say OK on this, and again, it's a separate layer, so I can then paint on this or adjust it as I see fit. Now, the thing I learned when playing with this is there are some images it works pretty well on. I think it did a really good job on this image. There are others it does not turn out so well. So let me show you another image. Here's one. This one, mind you, has some damage, but it's a black and white photo. And let's take a look at what it looks like when we try to colorize this one. And I'm just going to hit OK. And you can see it has some issues. It got Santa's arm, and it figured out it needed to be red, so yay for it. But you notice it didn't color down here his legs or her legs. It turned the tree red instead of green, so I'm guessing that the neural engine just didn't know what to do with it. It may have recognized Santa, but it certainly didn't recognize any of the other parts of the image. So the colorize filter is kind of hit or miss as to whether it works real well or not, just to warn you about that. Next is another filter that I found gave me kind of mixed results in how well it worked. Let's say we have this image and we like it, but what we really want to do is we want to take a closer look at these guys in the background. We want to look more closely at them. The problem is if I zoom in on them, you'll notice they get blurry very quickly because there wasn't a lot of pixel detail there. There wasn't a lot of detail to work with. So what we have now is a feature called super zoom. Let me show you this. And again, I will tell you, it's kind of hit or miss as to how well it works. Neuro filters. Oh, please excuse my cat saying hi to y'all. I'm going to go to super zoom and turn it on. And all I have to choose from really that matters is this zoom level. So I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to focus in on that guy, and I'm going to go in maybe 5 times to zoom in on these people right here. I'm going to tell it to enhance the details, and let's see what it does. I'm going to say OK. And now, okay, you tell me. How great did it do on that? Yeah, it's not as pixelated as it would have been previously, just by zooming in. I'm not a huge fan of this. Going in 5 times on an image like this is pushing it a little bit. That's equivalent. Let me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, you can see a lot of pixels here. So maybe it's a little bit better. I'm not completely sold on this one yet. Let's go to the next one. If you've ever worked with JPEG images, you may have noticed that they will get what are called JPEG artifacts. When you save a file as JPEG, it is saved as in a lossy format, meaning it throws away some of the quality. If I zoom in on this image, you'll be able to see that. Can you see the checkerboard pattern? There's a bunch of checkerboard, if you will. That's an artifact from JPEG compression. This image was saved at some point in a low quality JPEG setting, which means that it breaks the image down into little squares and then blurs each square independently. That's part of how it makes the file smaller. So you can end up with an image like this that has some severe JPEG artifacting. Let's see if our neural filter can help with that. I'm going to go into the JPEG artifacts, turn it on, tell it to go ahead and do some high strength repair, and let's see how it did. So, before, after. Did a pretty good job. In fact, it did a much better job than the way one normally deals with JPEG artifacts, which is just by blurring the image. We still have pretty decent detail. Now, it's not perfect, because you can't make something out of nothing. We did lose quality when this file was saved as a JPEG, but it's not bad at all. I'm pretty happy with what it did for this image. The last one I want to show you, we're going to start with this image, again, stock photos, and we're going to do Smart Portrait. Smart Portrait is kind of the rock star of the neural filters. This is the one that they're showing all over the place. Now, I will say again, sometimes it doesn't work, but when it does work, it's pretty amazing. So let's go ahead and go into neural filters, go into our beta ones, and it's Smart Portrait right up here. I'm going to turn that on. And you're not going to see anything happen at first other than this blue square that comes in. Let me just zoom in a little. The blue square tells you it has identified a face, and that's what it's going to work on. So let's just go down the line. You'll notice there are certain areas, expressions, subject, mask stuff. I'm going to start with expressions. Let's see about making her look a little bit happier. She's got a pretty expressionless face here. So I'm going to turn that up a little bit. This again, you'll notice, is going to sit here and think about it for a little bit because this is some pretty heavy-duty processing going on. You'll know it's done when the little circle stops spinning. But what it's doing right now is it's analyzing the image and trying to see if it can make her look a little happier. What do you think? Before, after. And by the way, it didn't just put a smile. By the way, where did it find her teeth? I don't know. But it also changed her expression a little bit. As I toggle that on and off, you'll see her eyes changed a little bit. The shape of her cheeks, it made her cheek lines a little more defined because when of her mouth being open. Now let's just go overboard here. Crank it all the way up. I will tell you that my daughter thinks that looks kind of creepy, but the choice is yours as to whether you think she looks very happy there or not. And again, look at the before and the after. Pretty cool. Now, of course, if we can make her happy, let's also see if we can make her sad. Does she look more sad there? There was before originally. There's sad. Eyes opened a little bit more. I think that's pretty cool. Now, is it going to beat what a professional retoucher can do? No. But for something real quick, this is pretty amazing. So let's forget happiness for a minute. Can we make her kind of surprised? Let's just go for broke. We're going to make her very surprised. So when you think surprise, what does that mean? It means the eyes and the mouth open up. Huh? There she is, surprised. Or maybe she's not surprised at all. She's very lackadaisical about this. Yeah, see, that looks like a skeptic to me. And of course, if we're going to do that, I think we got to make her angry. Let's see how she looks when she's angry. Ooh, look at those eyebrows move in. Again, before, after. Ooh. Or what's the opposite of angry? I would think maybe that would be happy, but there. There we go. There's happy without showing the teeth. What do you think? The eyebrows are up. Slight smile. Those are pretty cool. And by the way, you can combine them. I don't know why you would want to, but what happens if we make her happy and angry at the same time? Oh yeah, that's the I'm smiling, but I really detest you look. Okay, I can understand that. All right, let's take a look at some of our other options. We can age her. Now, this is kind of interesting looking. Let's age her just a little bit. Hair is thinned out a little bit, change color a little. Let's go for crazy here. All the way. We're going to age her all the way up. Changes the hair color and thickness. It adds wrinkles. Look at the before and after. But of course, if we can age someone, can we de-age them? Well, let's see. I don't see a whole lot of difference here. She wasn't exactly old to begin with. Just changed her hair a little bit, smoothed out a couple of things. So the de-aging isn't doing much with her. I might have to try it with someone who's older and see what happens. We can also change the gaze. Where is she looking? Let's have her look off to the side a little bit. Let's have her look off to the side a lot. So now you can have her looking around. And of course, if she can look to one side, she can just as easily look to the other side. We can also change the thickness of her hair. Let's give her a lot thicker hair. See how that looks? Let's give her a lot thinner hair. See how that looks. I'm going to skip over head direction for just a moment. Light direction. Let's change the lighting source in the image. So you can see I'm moving the lighting from one side all the way over to the other. That one works pretty well. But now for the fun part. Let's go with head direction. By the way, I have seen images where this works really, really well, and others where it's not so good. Let's try to go about halfway to one side. So what it's trying to do is turn her head, which is pretty amazing when you think it's working with a flat, straight-on image. Let's go all the way. See if we can make this one look bad. What do you think about that? Her head is turned all the way to one side. How about the other direction? Okay, here's where we run into a problem. Notice it doesn't know what to do with her hair. It tries to keep the eye intact without dealing with the hair. So that's a wee bit problematic. So maybe we don't want to go too far. And that's just because of the fact that her hair was pretty close to her eye on that side to begin with. And then we have a few other options. We can feather, meaning how much does it transition into the other image? Does it retain unique details? Oh, what happens if I let's try turning her head to where it does weird things on that side. And let's turn off retaining unique details. There we go. That did much better. So there she is looking to the side. Telling it to retain unique details told it to keep that eye intact, even if it did weird stuff. So that looks much better now. And again, it does this non-destructively, so we can turn it on and off as we see fit. So what do you think? Pretty cool stuff? I think it's very nifty. And by the way, just so you know, there's one of my cats, and if you try to run the neural filters on like an animal, it will not let you do smart portrait. Unfortunately, I was really hoping I could have fun with my cat photo. Oh well. But if you are interested in learning these or any other cool things, come check out one of our Photoshop classes. And I hope you learned a few things, and thank you very much for attending this session. Bye.